Hey everyone, it's Aunt Cindy. So we are going to look at some things about Grandma Chris's life. And remember, we're going to have a little contest on Saturday for our family reunion. So make sure you watch this, okay? Because there's going to be a contest. And make sure and remember as many things about this as you can. All right, here we go. Snips from the Past, Mary Rosalie Christensen. So here's Grandma Chris when she was in high school. And here's Grandma Chris just maybe 10 or 15 years ago. Alfred, Vida called. I think it's time. Alfred put down his woodworking tools and ran into the house. Is your suitcase ready? He asked. It's been packed for a week, Vida responded as she pointed to the place where it lay by the front door. Alfred grabbed his suitcase as Vida took his arm. Walking as quickly as she was able, Vida and Alfred got into their car and hurried to the Crane maternity home to have their first child. Springville, Utah was 15 miles away from the maternity home in Provo, Utah, and their Model T Ford could get there in 30 minutes. So let me just explain who we're talking about here. So Vida is Grandma Chris's mother, and Alfred is Grandma Chris's father. And look at Vida, she's pregnant right now because she's got Grandma Chris in her belly. And look at that, there's their Model T Ford. Look at that. That's what they drove. And this is the Crane the Crane Maternity Hospital. It looks like a house, really, but that is the maternity hospital that Grandma Chris was born in. This 30 minutes, because they're driving for 30 minutes, and when you're having a baby, that can be a long time. This gave Vida time to reflect. Alfred and Vida had just moved to Springville from Boston, Massachusetts. Now, I live in Boston, Massachusetts, and they used to be out here. They went to school out here. So they had just moved from where I'm living right now. Great-great-grandma Chris thought about the private school for girls where she taught for 5 years and the two ladies that owned it. She turned to Alfred and said, I miss them so much. Who do you miss? Asked Alfred. Mary Barber and Rosalie Carroll. I loved working with them. They taught me things I would never have learned anywhere else. They would love to be with me on this day. If this is a girl, I would like to name her after them. What do you think, Alfred? Alfred sat quietly for a moment, considering. I think they would be honored. In fact, I like the idea, Alfred replied. Much better than Dahlia, which is what your mom's friends want us to name her because your mom, Lavina Fugel, is known as the Dahlia Lady of Pleasant Grove, Utah. So Grandma, whose name is Rosalie, maybe they would have thought to name her Dahlia after a flower. But now she was actually named Rosalie after a rose. So anyway, great-great-grandma Fugel, she was the Dahlia Lady of Pleasant Grove, Utah. Thank you, said Vida as she reached over and squeezed his knee. They smiled at each other in happy approval. Several hours later, March 11th, 1931, remember that date, March 11th, 1931, redheaded Mary Rosalie Swenson was born. And look, there is Grandma as a baby, and there's her mother. And look at, don't you think her hair is really different? It's kind of in the olden days, isn't it? And there's Grandma in 2014. Okay. Oh, look at this. There she is as a baby. Vida was sitting in her rocker, holding Rosalie in her lap when Alfred came in with a big smile on his face and said to her, "How would you like to move to Provo?" "It would be closer to your work," said Vida, "and you would get home sooner." "I would like that." Glancing down at Rosalie, she said, "Rosalie would like that too, because she loves to play with you." Alfred remembered his college days in New England. He went to the Conservatory of Music in Boston and never dreamed that so soon he would have a good job at Dixon Junior High School, teaching chorus, orchestra, and shop, and become a daddy to boot. He paused for a moment with a thoughtful look on his face and then exclaimed, "Vida, maybe I could take Rosalie for a ride on my bike." "You'll have to wait, Alfred. She's only 2 weeks old, you know. But I think that's a very good idea." And there's a picture of Grandma, and there you can see the bike in the background. So Grandpa liked to take Grandma, Chris, her father, liked to take Grandma and Chris on a bicycle, a little baby on a bike. 11 months later, with squeals of delight, Rosalie reached out for a handful of frosting from the special birthday cake her mother had made for her first birthday. It had been one big candle in the middle, which Vida protected from Rosalie's curious hands because she knew she loved cake, especially the icing. Who doesn't like icing on the cake? "Is she old enough to go for a bike ride?" Alfred queried with excitement. "What a great birthday present. She would love that," Vida smiled as she led them both out the door for this very special first bike ride. Later, when Alfred taught school at Dixon Junior High, which was 2 blocks from Rosalie's grade school, Timpanogos, that's the name of her grade school, was Timpanogos, he would give Rosalie a ride to school on his bike. She loved her time with her daddy. He looks very happy, doesn't he? Oh, look at the picture of them riding on the bike. Can you see that? Look how happy that Rosalie looks, and look at her clapping. As Rosalie grew, 2 brothers and 1 sister came along. So these are her sisters and brothers, Gordon, Kay, and Arlene. Alfred loved to take pictures. So for the next 6 years, he took lots of pictures of Rosalie and her brothers and sister. They were now living across the street from Timpanogos grade school. There was one picture he would have liked to take, but never got the chance. It would have been a picture of Rosalie running madly out the door and across the street to school with her long red berets flying behind her. This picture made him smile broadly as he remembered Miss Harding, her teacher, saying, "Many days holding my breath that Rosalie gets here before the second bell. I watch her out the school window and breathe a sigh of relief when she scurries through the door just in time to start class." So Grandma every morning would have to braid Grandma Chris's hair, and it always just the very last minute, she just barely made it on time. And there is her school that she would run across to. And it looks like in this picture, Lindsay made it so that she just ran barefoot. That must have been a really hot day there. She didn't have time to put her shoes on. Christmas was exciting at the Swenson house. Memories of the presents from Mary Barber and Rosalie Carroll that Rosalie had received kept running through her head. She had made so many Christmas decorations using the patterns from those presents. A Christmas chicken hung gaily from the bough of their Christmas tree, and a cardboard nativity scene, which she had punched out and put together, sat on the living room table. Rosalie cherished these gifts and took great care of them. And in fact, I think Grandma still has some of them. Look at how happy she looks. When she was 8, they sent her a beautiful ring with with a square blue stone in it. She loved it so much that she wore it almost every day. One day she had taken it off to wash her hands and it fell into the basin down the drain. Daddy, Daddy, I lost my ring. Please help me, she sobbed. Daddy came with a wire, turned the end to make a hook, and put it down the drain. He put it down the drain and no ring. He took off the pipe, still no ring. Rosalie understood her tears. As Rosalie understood this, her tears increased. The ring was gone. The only place she would see it again was in her dreams. Have you ever lost something like that? That's really too bad. I want to say that I think I remember the same story of Mom losing her wedding ring down the drain too, but I might be wrong. Anyway, it's really sad that she lost that ring, but look, this is one of the chickens, and Grandma still has that ornament, and she still puts it up every year on her Christmas tree. Another year, a few days before Christmas, Rosalie ran to her mother and asked, "Is there a package for me today?" "Yes, I put it under the Christmas tree," her mother replied. Rosalie ran excitedly to the tree. Yes, the present was from Mary, Barbara, and Rosalie Carroll. Her mother cautioned, following her to the tree. "Remember the rule, we don't open our packages until Christmas." Now, this was a hard rule to follow, especially for a 7-year-old. For several days, Rosalie looked at it under the tree. Every time she looked, she had to tell herself, no. One night, after everyone went to bed, however, she crept into the living room and took the precious present to her room. Can you believe that Grandma did that? I can't. I can't imagine Grandma ever doing anything like that. Anxiously, she peeled the wrapping from the box. There it was. What a wonderful surprise. A thick book of stories. Carefully, she wrapped it up and put it back under the tree. No one ever knew. Christmas morning came. It was Rosalie's turn to open a gift. Her dad handed her gift. She pretended to be excited. "Oh, I can't wait." But her pretending soon faded. She had not followed the family Christmas rule. Besides receiving the book, she had been given another gift she hadn't expected, an overwhelming sense of guilt. She had learned her lesson and vowed she would never do it again, which she has kept to this day. And that is really true. Every time we give Grandma a gift, she will not open it until after Christmas. So therefore, everybody, you don't open your presents until Christmas Day. It was washing day, but this was a special washing day. From the time Rosalie could ask questions, she would watch her mom gather up the temple clothes she washed for her and her daddy, sprinkle them with water, and let them sit for a while so that they would be damp all the way through. Then came the ironing process, which took a long time. Rosalie loved to watch her mom iron. With the ironing came questions. "What are you doing?" Rosalie asked. "I'm ironing Daddy's and my temple clothes," Mother replied. "What are temple clothes?" was Rosalie's question. Her mother responded reverently, "Sweetheart, they're very special clothes. We wear them when we go to the Salt Lake Temple." "Why do you have to wear special clothes to the temple?" Rosalie wondered. "That is a very good question, dear," her mother replied. "Having everyone wearing white clothes in the temple is a symbol that Heavenly Father loves all of us the same." Rosalie smiled. This understanding felt good. "Why do you go to the temple?" Rosalie asked. "Do you remember your grandmother and grandfather Swenson?" "Yes, I do." "Well, their mommy and daddy never heard the gospel when they lived in Denmark and Sweden, long before you were born. They lived before Heavenly Father helped Joseph Smith organize his church again. They were never baptized, so someone had to be baptized for them. We love them very much and want them to have those blessings. Then they will be able to be together forever, just like Mommy and Daddy will be. Can I go to the temple too? Rosalie asked. Her mother replied, when you get ready to be married, you can go to the temple to be married forever. What do you mean forever? That means for all the time. You live here on this earth and after you die and go to heaven and forever after that, her mom answered. This became Rosalie's goal, to be married in the temple, and she never lost that goal. When she turned 18 years old, she was baptized in the font of the stake office building in Provo, Utah. She always would remember the name of the elder who baptized her because it was the same as her brother's name, Kay. She had paid her few pennies as tithing to her bishop for a long time, and he said that one reason he knew she was ready to be baptized, and he said that that was one reason he knew she was ready to be baptized. Rosalie knew she had taken her first step to going to the temple. And you know what? I'm wrong. It wasn't 18 years old. It was 8 years old. Sorry about that. So when she was 8 years old, she was baptized. I was skipping ahead thinking it was going to be marriage. So this was when she was 8 years old. She was baptized. And she was also just like, well, it was a state office building in Provo. So it wasn't the temple. It was a state office building. Okay, this looks like Santa Claus. One winter, when Christmas was just around the corner, 8-year-old Rosalie wrote a short letter to Santa. Dear Santa, I have been very, very, very good this year. The only thing I really want is a dollhouse. I love you, Rosalie. She folded it tenderly and handed it to her daddy to mail. He asked her if he could read it. She laughed and said, "Oh, Daddy, I don't have any secrets from you. Of course you can read my letter to Santa." Daddy silently read her letter. As he read, a big smile came over his face as he thought of a very special plan. What do you think he's thinking? I could be Santa's helper, he thought, as he formulated the plan. Turning to her and giving her a big hug, he said, "Don't worry, I will take care of this." And off he went. To Rosalie's delight, on Christmas Day under the tree was the most wonderful dollhouse she had ever seen. "Oh, look," she exclaimed. "There's an upstairs and a downstairs where my dolls can play, and 4 big rooms with beautiful lights hanging from the ceiling." Then she noticed 2 dolls, a boy and a girl, standing by a small table. Carefully, she picked up the girl doll and asked her mommy what that was made of. "It is made out of glass, so you must be very careful how you play with them," her mother replied. Then she turned to her daddy. "Look, Daddy, there is little furniture in the house." Rosalie squealed. The top floor had beds for the dolls to sleep in, and the bottom floor had a sofa and chairs in one room and a table and chairs and a cupboard in the other. So one was a living room, obviously, and one was a kitchen with shingles painted on the roof. You see those shingles? With shingles painted on the roof, it looked to Rosalie like the house of her dreams. She turned to her mommy and daddy and said, "This is the best Christmas ever." Mommy and daddy looked at each other and winked. And you see there's some dolls that Grandma and Grandpa have, but I think, let's see if I have one here. Trying to see. Oh yeah, I do. Look at this. Do you see this little doll here? Do you see that? This is the kind of doll that Grandma had, and this is made of glass. So that was the kind of doll that she had in her dollhouse right there. Rosalie took good care of the dolls. She also had a dollhouse in her backyard for her big dolls. It was a grape arbor. which is a place where you grow grapes. Rosalie would pretend the grapevines were the walls and the ceiling. Her daddy made a table and chairs and a cupboard to go inside. She spent many sunny days playing in this dollhouse. Some days she brought her paper dolls out to play. A little boy down the street was her good friend, and they liked to play paper dolls together. I love to play paper dolls. I have a story about paper dolls, but I'm not going to tell it right now. But Mom knows it. Which paper dolls should I play with today? Her friend asked. Let's get my favorite, the family with the 12 children, Rosalie replied. Does it have a mom and dad? He asked. Yes, and a grandpa and grandma too. They all fit nicely in this house, Rosalie said as she ran to her room to get them. Rosalie had so much fun playing that she imagined one day she would have 12 children of her own. Would you like to have 12 children? It's a lot of kids. When Rosalie was in 6th grade, she was invited to be the drum majorette for the school band. This was a big surprise because she had never dreamed of doing such a thing. Her mother said, we must make you a beautiful white outfit because you will be the leader of the band. What about my hair, Mom? Rosalie asked. Oh, we can take care of that. Remember how I put your hair up in rags to make lovely ringlets? Yes, I remember. It took so long. Actually, Grandma used to do that to my hair. You put rags in your hair and it makes all these ringlets. It does take a long, long time. Mother replied, yes, about an hour, dear, but it's worth it. And it is worth it because they last forever. Rosalie thought this was a great way to do her hair because the ringlets would last a week long. When the parade day came, she felt happy and excited in her white satin uniform. She adjusted her high-topped hat that was propped on the top of her long ringlets and felt very grand. With her baton in hand, she led the band down the street, giving the proper signals. Her mother and dad watched her with the greatest admiration and love. They met her at the end of the parade. She ran to her mom, gave her a big hug, and said, thank you for making my costume and doing my hair. You are the best mom ever. Her mom smiled sweetly as she hugged her back. It is so worth it, dear. This was truly a day to remember. And look at her. There's her ringlets right there. Look at that white, beautiful satin costume. And there's her drum majorette's hat. Rosalie was getting ready to go out the door to Dixon Junior High when the phone rang. Hello, she answered, grabbing the black receiver by the door. Mom, it's for you. She was curious what Uncle Delbert, was calling about. I guess it was Uncle Delbert on the phone. But she'd be late if she waited to find out, so she hurried off to school, hearing her mother saying, are you serious? I think it would be okay. I'll talk to Alfred about it. Now this looks like it's her dad, Alfred, and it looks like he is leading the choir. When she came home for lunch, the first thing she did was ask her mom, what did Uncle Delbert want? He asked if he could store his marimba phone at our house while he does some remodeling on his house, her mother replied. Oh, I hope Daddy says yes, came Rosalie's anxious words. Her dad did say yes, and the next day, the beautiful marimba phone was situated comfortably in the living room. Now, I know you guys know what the marimba is. If you've ever been to Grandma's house, that is the marimba. Of course, I would like to help you learn some pieces. Oh, actually, let's see, where am I? Okay, Daddy, will you teach me to play the marimba? Rosalie asked. Of course, I would love to help you learn some pieces. You learned to play the marimba in the New England Conservatory of Music, didn't you, Daddy? She stated with pride. I sure did, and if I can do it, you can too, he agreed. So began her years of learning to play the marimba. Her dad taught her patiently and well. He took her to play for many programs, and the big instrument became her true love. I love to hear myself play, she said many times, because the music sounds heavenly to me. Wooden keys make a softer, more gentler sound than other instruments. Her favorite piece to play was very fast and took a long time to memorize. It's called Le Secret Intermezzo by Leonard Gutier. She told her dad, I feel so happy whenever I play it. I feel so happy whenever I play it that I play it again and again just for fun. He smiled and gave her a hug. I'm glad, he said. That is the best payoff a teacher could ever have. The best pay a teacher could ever have. I guess she got lessons for free from him, but she paid him back by working really hard. And that's a really good way if you're taking any lessons, that when you work really hard and practice really hard, it really makes your teachers happy, doesn't it? So there's Grandma playing her marimba. High school brought new challenges for Rosalie. The first one came when she told her mom, I'm not going to school to register. How come? Her mom asked. Because I'm so much taller than all the boys? Rosalie lamented. In her mind, she could still see herself dancing with the boys in grade school and high school, and them saying to her, how is the weather up there? As they tipped their head back and looked up to ask her. Back then, girls did not like to be taller than boys. I don't know if that's changed or not. However, her mom had a different opinion about the matter. Dear, you don't run away from your problems. You face up to them with the Lord's help. When she got to Provo High School the next day, all the boys who she hadn't seen all summer had grown a foot. They were taller than she was. A big smile came over her face, and she enjoyed this day as she looked up to her boy classmates and says, how's the weather up there? That's pretty funny. Rosalie in high school. After a few weeks in high school, Rosalie's mom asked, how come you look so happy? She said, because I love my classes. Softball is my favorite, even if my fingers get in the way of the ball and get sprained. Mixed chorus is fun. We're going to Salt Lake for a special program this year. And guess what? In my English class, we're going to write to pen pals in Europe to let the kids over there know that we like them. President Roosevelt wants to calm down the bad feelings the war has caused. That is quite a mouthful, laughed her mom. I'm glad that you're happy now because President Roosevelt is right to make peace throughout the world. It wasn't long until the phone rang. And if you look at this phone, that's what phones used to look like back in the olden days. You couldn't touch anything. You'd have to circle something in it, and then it would go, and it took like an hour to make a phone call. It was crazy. I'll get it, Rosalie called as she sped for the big black phone sitting on the rounded shelf her dad had made and attached to the wall. Would you like to go to the dance with me at Rainbow Rendezvous in Salt Lake this Saturday? Asked the voice on the phone. She did go with him. When she came home, she found her parents waiting up for her to hear her story about her date. Oh, Mom and Dad, I felt like Cinderella at a ball. He danced so gracefully. It felt like dancing on a cloud. Her dad chuckled. That is quite a different story than the one you told us when you got home from your adventure to the hermit's cabin. So look at, this was some kind of ball that she went to. Rosalie and Mom laughed out loud. You can say that again. How is it that no one got in trouble over that escapade? Well, you see, we were at the school prom and we wanted to do something fun after. So we decided to drive up to the hermit's cabin. We laughed as we explored around the cabin. It was kind of weird and scary, full of cobwebs and bugs. My date hopped into the car and told all of us it was time to go home. When he tried to start the car, nothing happened. The gas gauge showed empty. How did you manage to get down the mountain in your formal dress? Asked Dad. Our dates held our hands, or we would have never made it. I won't do that again. So there they are, holding hands and going down the mountain. And this guy looks like he's pretty upset because his car ran out of gas. One winter day, Rosalie and her girlfriends, or just one girlfriend, I guess, Joan Elliott, were lying on the rug talking. So that must be Joan right there. There's Rosalie, and there's another friend, Jane. Actually, she kind of looks like me, Grandma does in that picture. And she kind of looks like Peggy, and she kind of looks like, she looks like, she looks like a lot of us. Okay, here we go. So one day, Rosalie and her girlfriend, Joan Elliott, were lying on the rug talking. Joan, said Rosalie, are you going to the mutual ice skating party tonight? Don't think so. Are you? Replied Joan. At first, I didn't want to go on a date, but since it was a party for mutual class, I decided it would be all right. Who did you ask? Joan wondered. Remember that boy I threw a snowball at the other day? Yes, said Joan. It was him. His name is Wendell Christensen, Rosalie said, smiling. Well, I hope you have fun. See you tomorrow, Joan said as she got up and waved goodbye. Just then the phone rang. Rosalie picked up the phone. Hello? Yes. Okay, thanks. What was that all about? Asked her mom. It was my mutual teacher. Our mutual ice skating party has been canceled. Oh, how embarrassing. What will I tell Wendell? Just tell him the truth. Everything will be all right, said her mom. Oh, I hope so, Rosalie said in a soft voice. Well, Wendell was right on time, as usual. Rosalie answered the door with half a smile on her face. Hi, won't you come in? Rosalie said. Thank you. Ready to go ice skating? Wendell replied. Well, the party has been canceled because the ice melted. I'm so sorry, Rosalie lamented. Oh, that's no problem. Want to go to a movie instead? Wendell asked. That would be fun. Thanks for the invitation. Are you sure you don't mind? Not at all. Ready? A big smile set her feelings at ease. Now, this is the romantic part of the story. Off they walked to the Capitol Theater. It was a little over a mile from Rosalie's house. They talked and talked. Soon they were standing in front of the ticket booth. Wendell paid for the tickets, took her hand, and led her into their seats. And back then, believe it or not, like the tickets were like 5 cents. Can you believe that? It's crazy. There were no empty seats anywhere. Still holding her hand, Wendell said, I have an idea. And he led her up the stairs to the top step. He knelt down on one knee and said, Here, have a seat, pointing to the other knee. Taken by surprise, Rosalie obediently sat on his knee. In fact, she sat there for the whole movie. This was the beginning of a lovely relationship, which she described to Joan later as an evening to remember forever, with her knight in shining armor. And there's Grandpa and Grandma, and look at her knight in shining armor. Soon, Knight Wendell asked Rosalie to go out with him again. This time it was to play tennis. After their game, as any gallant knight would do, he massaged her dainty feet. They went to all the high school dances together. They even danced in the LDS Church Dance Festival together in Salt Lake. Between more tennis games, school and church dances, and walking to the movies, their dating became more regular. Look at how happy they look together. Rosalie and a group of mutual girls were standing around the piano practicing a song after mutual one evening. Wendell and his cousin came walking by on their way upstairs to the basketball court. They heard the girls singing and went over to the piano to add their voices. As Wendell walked up behind Rosalie and put his hand on her hips to look over her shoulder to see the music, she heard a soft message in her mind and heart. This is who you are going to marry. That was the message. She felt a calm excitement in her whole being, but she did not let it show. She kept on singing as if nothing else mattered but to learn the song. However, after the practice, as Rosalie and Joan were walking home, she confided in Joan, This is the one I will marry someday." "Oh, you mean the gallant knight?" Joan said. "Yes, I know it sounds crazy," Rosalie responded, "but it will happen." After that, a crazier thing did happen. She forgot all about what happened on that particular evening. She and Wendell kept on dating as if she had never had the message that she would marry her knight in shining armor. They loved to talk as they walked on their dates. They talked about everything. He loved her made up stories that were like fairy tales about anything that popped into her head. Wendell graduated 1 year before Rosalie did. That presented a problem. He no longer could get into the dances with her because he was no longer a Provo High School student. However, he was not going to let that stop him from going to the dances with her. Wendell and Rosalie showed up together at the next dance. Mr. Treagaggle, I hope I pronounced that name right, Mr. Treagaggle, the teacher, checking the student body cards at the door, looked at Wendell and said, "I thought you graduated already." "Yes, I did," replied Wendell as he flipped out his student body card and handed it to Mr. Treaggle. "I bought me a card just so I could go to this dance." Absolutely amazed, Mr. Treaggle stammered, "I guess that's a good idea. No rule says you can't." Still shaking his head, he motioned for them to come to the dance. You know, Grandpa always figured things out. It's so cute. That's such a great story about him. Wendell and Rosalie liked to sit on the edge of her front porch and talk after their dates. This night, Wendell turned to her and said, "What would you think if I told you I was going on a mission?" "I think that would be the most wonderful thing that could happen for you," she replied. "What kind of engagement rings do you like?" Wendell mischievously whispered. "What?" Rosalie blurted. "Yes," he said, "if I go, will you wait for me?" "Yes, oh yes," came the quiet reply. And so it was agreed, and so it was done. They shopped for a solitaire ring. There they are sitting on the steps. And look, there's Grandma with her sweetheart sweater. They shopped for a solitaire ring together. That was just what she had dreamed of. They made plans for while she was gone. She would serve a stake mission, join the Missionary Sweetheart Club, and make things for their future home. And of course, they would write to each other regularly. They would remain true to each other. That evening, Wendell talked to her father to ask for her hand in marriage. That's very romantic. While Wendell was gone, Rosalie wore her missionary sweetheart sweater with a heart on the bottom to feel more in touch with her missionary. She worked as a telephone operator, a clerk at Taylor's department store, and went to college at BYU. So it was agreed, and so it was done. Rosalie loved to do all the things she did while waiting for Wendell as he served as a missionary. At her last missionary sweetheart meeting, she announced that Wendell was home and thanked them for all their friendship. She said, "I really love being a stake missionary. It kept me feeling close to the elder Christensen. I love my work at the telephone company. In fact, I got to call Elder Christensen, which is Grandpa, the other night on my night shift. I loved working at Taylor's too. My friend Ara Jean Hyatt and I worked together to mark all the products that came in. I love going to BYU. It is interesting that some of the boys actually protected me from other boys who wanted dates. My favorite class at the Y were seminary and tennis. Above all, I want you to know that you've always been there to help. I want you to know that you all have been the help that I needed." There she's playing tennis. And all of the missionary sweethearts sang at their wedding. Isn't that wonderful? So this was the club that Grandma belonged to, waiting for her missionary. And that's wonderful that they all sang at her wedding. So now there's Grandpa coming home from the mission. The next day was the big day. Rosalie went to Wendell's parents to meet Wendell at the bus depot. As she was getting ready, she thought, how is it going to be to see him again? What will he do? What will I do? It was 2 years. They hadn't seen each other for 2 years. It's kind of weird to see somebody that you haven't seen for that long. The ride to Salt Lake seemed to take forever. When they got to the bus depot, they found that the bus had already come in and Wendell's brother, Don, had been the one to meet him. However, when they saw each other and walked towards each other, she remembered the several descriptions the girls at the club had given of her romantic hugs and kisses when their missionary greeted them the first time, and she was ready for one of those. So all her friends had said when they met their missionaries, they hugged and they kissed, and that's what Rosalie thought she was going to get. But instead, Elder Christensen just reached out his hand and gave her a warm and tender shake. That was not the greeting she had expected. 3 nights later, when Wendell and Rosalie finally had time alone to talk, he quietly said, I'm not ready to get married yet. I've seen too many marriage problems in the mission field, and I need to think about this some more. Rosalie quietly answered, if that's what you feel, I will try to understand and go along with your decision. 2 weeks later, he made his decision. I want to let her know in a special way, he thought, but how? I've got it. Rosalie answered the phone. Hello? Hi, sweetheart. How about the two of us go to General Conference together? We could get seats in the balcony and go to Walgreens just a block down the street for lunch. That sounds wonderful, was her reply. Their plans happened just as they discussed. It seemed to them that the talks were especially for them. Lunch at Walgreens was not a common thing for them to do, but it was not a common thing he was going to do. So this is the right place, Wendell thought, as he enjoyed lunch and conversation. The waitress brought their dessert, lemon meringue pie. They both loved this pie, but it was Wendell's favorite. Slowly, they relished each delicious mouthful. With only half of his pie eaten, Wendell put his fork down and reached for Rosalie's hand. At first, the words were slow to make sense, but then she realized he was proposing marriage to her for a second time. Oh, glorious day, she thought. Then she heard herself say, oh, yes, 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 but of course you knew the answer before you asked it, didn't you? Rosalie remembered the counsel she had received in her patriarchal blessing. Choose a good partner in life. It is a very important thing to choose a good partner in life. So I bless you with wisdom, health, and good judgment so that you might be wise in your choice. She knew she had made the right choice. 6 weeks later, Mother, do I look all right? Oh, I want to thank you for the wonderful times we've had preparing for this day, going shopping in Salt Lake for my wedding dress, choosing my wedding cake, working together with your friend to decorate the church, and then just lying down on the carpet floor, just talking. Her mother smiled, just listening. You made it a sweet time for me, continued Rosalie, and I want you to know how much I love you for that and all the times you have been my angel, like making that absolutely gorgeous tablecloth and napkins from my hope chest where you were still mostly having to be in bed because of the hives caused by the abscesses around your teeth. Yes, her mother mused, it was a hard time for all of us. If the taxi I was riding in hadn't rolled over 3 times, injuring my teeth, that wouldn't have happened. But there was a bright side to all of it. It gave me time to put all those stitches in the tablecloth and napkins for you. They both smiled. More mother and daughter talk continued, but this is only for them to remember. They were interrupted by Dad coming to say it was time to leave for the Salt Lake Temple. They were up in a jiffy. The temple ceremony, Wednesday, November 21st, 1951, was sacred and beautiful. The dinner afterward with both families at a nice restaurant was filled with lots of family talk about the newlyweds, and the newlyweds told them all goodbye until Friday at the wedding reception, and off they went for their honeymoon. So there is Rosalie and her mother, and they're lying on the rug just talking and having their final talk before she gets married. And this is the wedding reception. You see they got all of these beautiful cutlery, all these spoons and forks, and they cut their cake. Doesn't Grandma look pretty? And that's the temple that they got married in. And there they are dancing right there, their wedding. Rosalie and Wendell enjoyed a 2-day honeymoon. They went to the bird refuge west of Brigham City and went to bowl in Brigham City on their way back. And they didn't even know at the time that they were going to live in Brigham City. The next day, they headed to Provo for the wedding reception, where a beautiful wedding cake, the display of Rosalie's trousseau, and many gifts were admired by the many guests as refreshments were being served. The missionaries' sweethearts sang to them as they danced. Rosalie knew it was definitely a night to be remembered as she whispered to Wendell, "I feel like Cinderella dancing with my knight in shining armor." And there they are dancing. And Grandpa was a very good dancer. So Mary Rosalie Christensen, born March 11th, 1931. Try and remember that date. And she was baptized May 21st, 1939. Look at that very cute little face. Married for time and eternity in the Salt Lake Temple. And there she is with her brother. That would be, let's see, there's Arlene, Kay, and Gordon. And there's Grandma there. Yep, got that right. Well, Ron, Kay and Ron are the same names. I think it's Ron, Kay, Ron. Okay, well, that is the story of Grandma. I hope you guys liked that story. It was fun to read. I learned a few things that I didn't know. I hope that you learned some things that you didn't know. So remember, try and remember everything that we talked about. And we're going to have some time on Saturday to talk about all this. All right. I love you guys. See you soon. Bye-bye.